everybody. It has been a long time since I've taken the stage. The last time I was here was probably in 2023, so it is good to see the new faces, the familiar faces, and the faces that you'll see again. For my first poem, in honor of the Hardback Cafe, I know, may it live long forever. Hardback 4 will be here eventually, and then we won't have to worry anymore. At least that's what I tell myself. This is a poem that I wrote after my dad died, and it felt very resonant, both River Phoenix and my father. So I dedicated this poem to River Phoenix during the River Phoenix Memorial that we did at the Hardback 3 before it closed. All right, Night Turtle. Chalet sand pressed gently into his hand sculpted back, glimmering softly in the full moon, illuminating the tide about to rise. The occasional wave, more determined than the rest, reaches to kiss the top of his head, eroding away as the full moon wanes to become new. He will not remain to witness her darkness. Only then should he rejoice as his sands and shells return to be given new shape. One thing that I try to remember as we face the demise of the high dive is that nothing in this world can ever truly be taken from us. It is a lesson that I have learned in Gainesville many a time, and each time it is equally painful, but that pain reminds you of the beauty of the world. This is a poem that I wrote when I first got here, and in it I began to explore the nature of going on this journey, both with the people around you and also alienated from them. As somebody new here, I had to rely heavily on the advice of others. It was a new environment to me, something I'd never seen before. But this is the advice that I received. The swamp is dangerous, little girl. Menacing, dark gleam. You might get bit, they warn. Wander aimlessly, listlessly ambling. The mosquitoes require their blood, of course. In the heavy swamp air, between various shades of green, they take it. To slap them becomes pointless. They swarm. The gators are not a threat as they swim across streams with ease, as long as you paddle away. But the Spanish mosses, motionless rustling in the unending hot, humid heat, sticky sweat secreting from every pore, signaling predators, increases paranoia to the point of sweet, sweet delusion. Is this the price of entry? The toll required to pass through gates to access the still silver satin water gently reflecting back on itself? Once you go downstream, you cannot go back up. You must begin again. I believe very heavily in the nature of poetry being an opportunity to protest in a way that allows you, I think, more freedom from the ideas that they have ingrained in our brains since the time of birth. And so when I got here, I found Payne's Prairie. And I was led here by Payne's Prairie. I genuinely believe that. So I have some poems that I have written about our sacred lands that we are so blessed to be surrounded by, and that we must fight for every day as the world around us becomes concrete and interstate paves. We can do what it takes to preserve what is around us, but we have to be intentional and cognizant of our own actions. Payne's Prairie, flat expanse of land, my father dead, silly man. Like all things, she changes with the rise and fall of sun and moon, the tides and seasons, and yet, impassive, impressive, she holds steady to herself and stretches out as far as she can. Mom, all of us are dying, I want to say. I cross Payne's Prairie and think about my father, dead on the living room floor, Pablo singing his sad tune, coffee table moved aside to give the dying man room to breathe, his body laying apathetic and cold, mouth open, limbs stretched out as if sleeping, The ambulance took him alive, my mother texted. Heart. But, like most confident truths, it was a lie. Payne's Prairie used to be a lake, my mother's brother tells the three of us. Dad, Margaret, James, left behind to sit in the familiar Stockbridge Zaxby's, made unfamiliar by the changing of the seasons, the passing of the years in our absence. And one day, the bottom fell out. A stranded steamboat forsaken, proof of passage across land that is now only imprint. Uncle Kermit, Gator, he calls himself, says, he always says stuff as if it's true. Payne's Prairie feeds herself. Silver princess reflecting the sky so the sun can admire his work and the moon can reclaim her hold. They use dynamite to mine the lighter wood, Frank explains. It's real heavy and good for starting fires. We listen, too young to have seen the explosions, but still able to feel the vibrations. I cross Payne's Prairie and I think about my father. I think about my father. I think about my father. Hurtling southbound on 75, passing Gainesville idly by in a rented car toward ugly high-rise with scenic view. You sold my home for this. My father sits beside himself, and I am left, an outline, a vessel, a ghost, insignificant and able to watch only as rubber seamlessly collides with road. My father is gone to some place I cannot go. The car is heavy, 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 and then infinity. Flat expanse of land and sky melted into one another, semis passing in flashes, white noise now, gliding into expanded horizon. Time stops. You will be okay, she whispers. Unseen from 75 southbound, the night embraces cars passing in the same and opposite direction, independent of the spectral orbs of red and orange bounding across the prairie in perfect lines that from this distance look almost frozen in time and space. I cross Payne's Prairie and I pray, please, Lord Father, make me a lake. Woo. All right. One of my absolute favorite aspects of Gainesville, and I think one of the singular most important parts that we can kind of take stock in, is that we have two beautiful bells that are there for us to ring whenever we need. And so this first poem is about the forgiveness bell, which doesn't currently have a hammer. There was a time when I put one there and I didn't chain it, so somebody took it, but this is the poem that I wrote about it. The forgiveness bell bellows so clear, Samara's hands are at her ears. Loud! But she takes the hammer from my hand, and in her hand, she cannot fully grasp it. Regardless, she strikes the rusted metal with enough strength to make the bell call softly. All right. Thank you. All right. Costco and Corona are two of those like weird, vague, non-notions of the real world is what I would call them. You go into Costco and it's kind of like this like fourth reality. It's got that liminal space. You're surrounded by people, but you can't really talk to them. And COVID was the ultimate isolationist, I would say. So I wrote this poem in the beginning days when things were both normal and abnormal. Till they figure out what the heck to do. Business Costco in Morrow is crowded but quiet, muted except, well, I'm just going to eat well and keep safe and not crowd up on people. The lines are drawn out points 6 feet apart. I want to know what is going to happen. A bemasked man directs the flow of foot traffic. Send me 2 more people. Dad leaves the card in the card reader. He does not notice the electronic jingle, hollow and too loud, until the woman at the register says, "Sir, you can take your card." And this one is, oh, thank you. This one is my favorite, I think, that I've written. I wrote it while I was in grad school in Milledgeville, which, for those of you who don't know, is up 441 a ways. It's connected here by ley lines, and it is similar and very different, but there are certain issues that are the same. I walk across the river, bubbling softly. A bridge lit by lights from cheap student housing. A man, illuminated, stands pouring dish soap into the stream running between Junkyard and the rest of Milledgeville. It is a creek, really. The bridge is just a means so you do not fall in, not a climb over a cavern. So I say to the man, "Sir, why are you pouring dish soap into the stream?" Bubbling, bubbling, transcendent air reflecting against dark night lit by street lights and student housing. He is not a student bent over like that, dish soap pouring. "Sir, why dish soap?" Sudsy snow gleaming. He looks at me and says, "The water. It is not fit to drink." I've got two more for you. And the first is the very first poem that I wrote about Payne's Prairie, which I guess came to me as some sort of vision. You cross the prairie so many times and it becomes stuck in your brain, you know. It's the kind of thing that you'd want to leave there. On 441, from Micanopy to Gainesville. The cranes. Do you see them? Arms outstretched. Do you see them? No, not those spiked behemoths building empty cathedrals towering above the trees. My trees. I saw them. They saw me. The trees. Do you see them? Circling the prairie from all sides, they sit so high, a canopy. My canopy. Do you see them? He said, "I see your passion, but slow down." Yes. But also, don't you feel it? My soul-filled, heart-healed, the cranes flap, arms outstretched to go and then come back, to hear the people who talk about petty and deadly and seminal winds. And the trees. "Look at the trees," a man from out of town says, looking up, a passerby. "I love the trees." "Welcome to Gainesville," the trees whisper as we walk. "That's my godmother," my sister said, of the tall oak tree with her wise face so elegant and sturdy in front of the bay window of her home, laid upon her gentle slope, dawning crown of leaves and casting soft safe shadows around us. "The storms," they explained of the giant hole that stole her place, filled with sawdust. A permanent yellow impression where once she stood. It could fall on the house. "You are not to be affected," they tell you. "You are not to care. So look away and don't see it. Look away, look away." The cranes. Do you see them? Beautiful deep blue sky and speckles of light against green and gray. Arms outstretched. And I will end my final poem on my favorite concept that you could have in this world that we live in today, is gratitude. The gratitude bell is a different color now. When I wrote this, it was yellow, and now it is teal. And it actually became teal the day Jukebox the Ghost, my favorite band since high school, came to town and asked me to be in their music video. And I ended up giving the lead singer the last poem I had just written, which had been published in the Ashtray. And he told me that he was very excited about the kind of zine that Zach and Pat were putting out. And I think we should all be grateful that Gainesville has such an incredible DIY scene, especially like Occupy Pancakes, which even again, as the high dive is going to meet its demise, is so much more important. It is the opportunity for us to come together and talk about the way in which the government is taking advantage of its people and doing things we don't want it to do. I have been thinking about Palestine every single day for months now, and it is difficult and it is painful to even conceptualize the massacre that is going on there, but it requires people to actually be willing to confront these things and talk about these things in order to make any sort of change. They should not be allowed to use our tax dollars to do something that is abhorrent and against everything that it means to be a human being. But within that is reminding ourselves what we have to look forward to be grateful for, to fight for, and to spread for others. So this is my poem about the gratitude bell. The gratitude bell rings long after 3 heavy hits, long after 1 uncertain wavering hit. Stirred by heavy hammer with wooden handle placed in hand of all shape and all size, it radiates like the sun, it compels like the moon, yellow with red stripe. It rings proudly throughout clear night and sluggish day, blanketing the streets to say, yes, I love you. Yes, I suppose it does not matter what is not, only that I would not trade what is for anything else. Grateful as I am to be the one to receive it. I am so highly honored to be part of such a beautiful crew, and the fact that Marvo has been putting on this incredible event and continuing to do so even with all of the problems that life has to offer. It is very important to give a stage to people to be able to express themselves and to share art and create together. And I am just so incredibly blessed that the hardback has helped me to begin such a beautiful journey that is full of so much light and love and joy, even in the darkest times. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to May and Whiskey & Co. and Madame Bobo and Piss Test and everyone else who is partaking in such a beautiful, beautiful event. And it is good to see you again, Dan Arkey and Tom Miller and Reverend Angel Dust. I look forward to hardback number 4. Thank you.